One pill will turn you into a superhero in Netflix's new movie Project Power, and the pills I take just keep me from sneezing at the cats. Hey everybody, I'm Dan Murrell here with my review of Project Power, which is the latest Netflix original film, and this one is a true original movie. This was produced by Netflix. It's not one that they picked up from another studio. Now, if you don't know about Project Power, this comes from the directing team of Henry Joost and Ariel Schulman. They brought you the documentary Catfish, which spun off into the MTV show. They did Paranormal Activity 3 and 4. They did a movie called Nerve, and the screenwriter is one to note. His name is Mattson Tomlin. You may not have heard that name before, but he currently has screenplay credit with Matt Reeves on The Batman, which is coming up here in a couple of years. Project Power is set in New Orleans, where a new street drug named Power gives you superpowers, but only for 5 minutes and in ways that you cannot predict. So you take the pill, maybe you'll become invincible, maybe you'll become a fire person, maybe you'll blow up. You don't know what's going to happen until you take that pill. Jamie Foxx plays Art, who is somehow tied to the mysterious origins of this new drug. Joseph Gordon-Levitt plays Frank, a New Orleans cop who's using power to even the playing field as more and more people get a hold of this thing and use their newfound superpowers for not so good reasons. And then Dominique Fishback plays Robin, who is a young street dealer of power who is in the game to help her sick mother. She's also an aspiring rapper. I think it's a really interesting premise with some pretty stock characters. However, Netflix is at a point where its projects can attract A-list and A-level talent. When you can afford this kind of talent, when you're putting the investment into movies like Netflix is, that means you can get people like the cast of this movie that take these characters who you've seen in other movies before and elevate them above the material. I mentioned before that this is a true Netflix original. They pumped $85 million into the budget of this movie. And when you're looking at that $85 million budget, I think a big chunk of it probably went into the paychecks for the actors, the A-list actors that you've got in this movie. I think a big chunk of it went into the visual effects for this movie, which look really, really good. And that's something that I think you have to get right in this movie. There aren't a lot of sustained action sequences, but the ones that are in the film need to look good and need to be executed well, or else I think the whole thing falls apart because you have this whole superpower concept at the center of your movie. If the superpowers themselves look bad or cheesy or whatever, then the rest of the movie's not going to work. So you can definitely tell where they put the money. I think the big chunks of money that you can see on screen were well spent. When we're talking about the superpower sequences, one of the things that I like is, we've seen grounded superheroes before. This has a similar tonality to Chronicle in the sense that we're seeing the dark side of these superpowers, but I do like how they make these average people, when you take this pill, you see these grotesque versions of characters, like the Hulk or Human Torch or Invisible Woman, these superpowers that manifest themselves so spectacularly in other media, but in this movie are so grounded and kind of gritty that it looks like a curse almost more than a blessing. And yes, we've explored the dark side and we've done grounded superhero stuff before, but I did like how this married the superhero movie and the kind of gritty street level crime drama. I think it did it in a much more successful way than Bright did, for instance, when it tried to marry gritty street level cop drama with crazy fantasy dragons and orcs. That felt forced. This feels a lot more natural. One complaint I did have, but it would have turned this movie into a parody. Without giving too much away, you don't know what powers different people are going to manifest. And so the whole time I was watching the movie, I was hoping that if Jamie Foxx ends up taking the pill, that he would manifest electric powers, which would be a great nod. But again, we would be going from gritty street level crime drama to meta parody of the Spider-Man franchise. So probably not a good idea. It would have been kind of funny though. As I mentioned, Jamie Foxx is one of the most centered and versatile actors working today, in my opinion, so I think he's a great choice for the lead of this film. He centers the movie. He gives it an emotional core. Joseph Gordon-Levitt is in full-on earnest mode. Not earnest as in like, hey, Vern, like earnest as in like he's a very earnest and serious person. He's doing almost like a Kyle Chandler impression in this movie. Like, he is super earnest. He's good. I think that Jamie Foxx and Dominique Fishback were given the more interesting stuff to do in the sense of the movie. He's sort of along for the ride, more or less. They do set up some interesting stuff with him kind of toward the beginning, and he gets lost in the shuffle a little bit. But the parts of the movie that he's in, I enjoyed him in. I mentioned Dominique Fishback. I think that you're going to see her in a lot of other movies going forward. She really maybe does the most of taking a character that is a character that you've seen in many different movies. When it got to the wannabe rapper part, I started kind of and just because you've seen that kind of thing, and that it can go so far into stereotype and parody almost at times. However, I think it's a combination of Dominique Fishback being a very talented young actress, and then when she does rap, they got original work done by the rapper Chica, who is making a name for herself in the music business right now. So it doesn't feel like a writer trying to write what a rapper would do. It actually feels like these are feelings and emotions that come from the inside, from the core of this character. It makes it feel authentic, and so it turned a plot point that I was very skeptical about to one that I actually think worked for the movie, because there was time and care taken to make it feel authentic to that character, and that's a great marriage of stuff happening in front of the camera and stuff happening behind the camera. I also think a lot of credit has to go to the cinematography of the film. Again, when you're putting so much money into effects and when you're paying a lot of great actors to be in your movie, sometimes the look of the film can be something that suffers. I do think that Michael Simmons, who is the director of photography on this film, does give this movie a very cinematic look. You feel this environment of New Orleans. You know the world that you're living in. Michael Simmons is the director of photography for the new Halloween films, among many, many others. I think that his work also needs to be credited here for helping to make this movie feel bigger than it is. When it comes down to it, I think that, yes, this movie has some drawbacks. It does have some stereotypical elements. It has some tropes that you've seen many, many times before. But I think it has a really interesting core premise. And maybe it's because I'm blockbuster starved. Maybe it's because these big movies that were supposed to come out this summer, we're in the middle of August now, we're still waiting for movies to come out. I think that if you like superhero films, particularly if you like darker superhero films, I think this is going to scratch that itch for you. It does feel like a step above what you would see from a normal quote-unquote streaming movie. For example, An American Pickle, which I reviewed last week, is a movie that I enjoyed, but it felt like a streaming movie. This feels like, it has a bit of that streaming feel, but it still feels like a step above, largely because you do have great talent, and it does look pretty good. And so this kind of scratched that summer movie itch. And I think that if you go into it not expecting a masterpiece, knowing that you're going to see a few things that you've seen before, but at the core of it, really the exploration of an interesting premise and some pretty solid performances, I think you're going to enjoy it, particularly because if you have Netflix, it's there. You don't have to pay anything else for it. It's not like Mulan. You don't have to pay extra money to watch it. You can just watch it when it drops. As I mentioned, it drops on Netflix at, I think, midnight Eastern time, 9 p.m. Pacific time tonight. So you can watch it here in a few hours, or more than likely, it's probably out as you're watching this review. But I would actually recommend this. I think for those of you that have been missing the bigger blockbuster summer movies, even though it doesn't elevate itself quite to that exact level, I think it gets close enough, and it's something that on a lazy Saturday or Sunday afternoon, a year or two down the line, I could definitely see myself revisiting this movie. So those are my thoughts on Project Power. Are you planning to check it out? Did you already check it out? What did you think? Let me know down in the comments below. And if you want to check out even more of what I'm doing, you can go to patreon.com/Dan Murrell. We're doing monthly movie commentaries, movie club, a whole lot of interesting and fun stuff. We'd love to have you join. I want to thank these patrons in particular. These are some of my producer level patrons that have helped me get things up and running. It's an evolving community, and it's one that I'd love to have you be a part of, so you can check me out there. You can check me out on Instagram at Merle Dan. I'm ramping up what I'm doing there. I'm going to be getting a giveaway going up on there soon, but you can also do movie trivia. That's something else that I'm building and growing. In addition to some other stuff that I have planned, I have a new show here on YouTube that I want to start doing pretty soon. I have another new project that I can't announce not quite yet, but very soon, that I'm very excited to start. We are in phase 2 of building this world and building this channel. Phase 1 has gone so well, and I'm so happy that so many of you have joined me so far, and I can't wait to growing and getting even bigger and even better, because this has been such a great experience so far. It helps that movies are kind of starting to come out again. That's nice. Some theaters are opening, maybe some box office. Charts with Dan will always keep going. Lots of fun stuff. Thank you so much for watching this review, and I'll see you next time.